Well, with few lines, Jacob Jensen Design or Jacob Jensen Design is one of the oldest and I guess also most award-winning design consultancies in the world. We've been around for 55 years now, founded in '58 in Copenhagen by my father and mother. I'm the second generation. And I hope that we stand for quality, and normally that you would be able to recognize a Jacob Jensen design or design that we've been involved with because it has a certain clarity or simplicity or a certain DNA. When you talk about design, first impression lasts. And we all know that from the lives that we live. What we see, are we attracted to it or we're not attracted to it? So first impression has to work, has to be there. But then of course things also have to work. But the old saying that form follows function is not incorrect, it's just not enough anymore. That things work, that a door handle works or a car works or whatever. It also has to have something more, it has to have an added value, which can be a lot of things. It could be design, aesthetics, sustainability, whatever. So of course there always has to be a balance between design, aesthetics, and design functionality. And that's what we're all trying to get the perfect balance. If you make a meal, it's the same thing. It has to taste good, that's the function, but it's also nice if it looks good. I mean, you're born alone, you're going to die alone. And throughout that life, between these 2 points, you meet people in situations and environments and plants and trees and animals and fish and everything, right? And music and taste and all that gives you inspiration somehow. What is inspiration? Is inspiration getting ideas? Is inspiration getting input? I don't really know. Some people say they get the inspiration when they're in the shower. Some people get the inspiration when they're out for a walk. I don't know if I get inspiration when I'm walking, but I think nature, and there's a lot of nature around this studio here, and I do a lot of walks in the forest along the coast. It's just a nice way to process the ideas that you have had through the day or through the night. I think all people are creative, and I think all people are capable of getting inspiration, but of course they have to know it. And if kids are brought up in bad environments, can be poor environments or can be abused environments, they don't believe in themselves. So you have to encourage children, say, hey, welcome to this world. You're the one we've been waiting for. You can do it, go and get it, right? So you gotta get children self-confidence, not make them arrogant, but give them self-confidence that they have as much rights to be in this world as Nelson Mandela and everybody else, right? That's important. And everybody can be creative. And I think particularly if you work in the creative environment, you also learn how do you get ideas. If you never work in the creative environment, you don't even know it's out there. You just work on the factory doing whatever, dog food cans or whatever. So you don't know that you can be creative. But I guarantee you, we all have the same kind of brain pretty much. So if you stimulate the creativity or the musical part or the whatever part, everybody can learn to play a piano, everybody can learn to drive a bicycle, everybody can learn to cook a meal, everybody can learn to make a design. Of course, some people may have what we call talent. They're a little bit better in this because they're a little sharper on the ear to hear the sounds of the music or the taste in the food or whatever it is. But we are all born as creative creatures, otherwise we wouldn't be on this planet anyway. Well, the storage system that we did for Bruynzeel was very interesting because we never worked in that field before. And you know, you get this project, you get signed up, and then you start working. What is this? And that's always very challenging when you get thrown in at the deep end in a sector or category that you haven't worked in before. And then you start thinking, right? And you just start dreaming and writing ideas down and making sketches and all that. And then relatively quick, we structure our process, and we've been doing that for over 50 years in this house here, how to process a project, no matter what it is. So you have some kind of tools, you have a grid of how to do things, how to get from A to B to C and so forth. And of course you think, what is this? This is function. This is how can you store a lot of stuff, whatever that stuff is, on a relatively small space. It's about square meters, you could say. But then of course there's a lot of other things to it when you start thinking of it. And one of them that we discovered is that it's not enough just to have function, you also want to have aesthetics. Because you're in this office environment and somebody put a plant there to make it nice for you, and a water dispenser and a window, so you have a view, and a nice table that can go up and down and whatever. And of course you want your storage system to look nice and to fit into that environment as well. And there's that if you speak to the king in a person, you get the answer from the king. If you speak to the bastard, you get the answer from the bastard. Design process, I guess different designers have their different processes. The way we do it here, we first of all try to understand what's the problem, what is this actually about. We try to boil it down from all the information, what's the core in this task. And then we line up at least 3 different approaches. You could say, speaking in metaphors, around a triangular and a square one, for example. Let's try that. Just so you have some kind of structure. It can be 5 or 10 different approaches. What kind of ideas do we have? But then we put them into a matrix system. So we work on these, for example, 3 different directions, and we process it to a level where the receiver, you, can understand our thoughts. So it's visualized in renderings or in models. So you say, and with text, this is the idea for this A, this is the concept for B, and this is the concept for C. And then we have the dialogue where you, with the client, whoever it is, say, hey, we like this, we don't like this. And then you get a criticism, a constructive criticism, and then you process that criticism into what we would call phase 2, where you take all the criticism and all the input and try to digest it and crystallize it into what we then call the raw design, the design. The ideal solution is magic, isn't it? You just do this, and all your books are there, and you do this, and they're all gone. Design is not art. Design shares a lot of processes with art, with painting or sculptures or whatever. But design is a service for an industry or for another company, helping them getting to where they want to be. It's one long line of compromises, designing things. We're creating a picture. You don't have to ask anyone. And of course you want to minimize the compromises in it as the designer, but you have to meet a lot of requirements: legal, shipping, manufacturing process, competition, environment, I mean, you name it. So the ideal storage system is magic. It's only there when I need it, and it's gone when I don't need it. Of course, you will have differences in environments, office environments, because the company, the corporation, they want to signalize something. What are their core values? We are Mercedes-Benz or Daimler, or we are Apple, or we are Coca-Cola, or we are whatever. And of course they want their environment, apart from being efficient and all that, to signalize their core values. Here, every designers in our studio in Shanghai and our studio here in Denmark can overlook water. In China, it's an artificial lake, but it's water, right? Here, it's the real water. We all have candle lights in our offices. We have fire in our fireplace. We have that in China. Even though it's 41 degrees today in Shanghai, we still have the fireplace. We play Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, in the morning. We play Pink Floyd in the evening or in the afternoon, because we think that is good for our environment. So of course there will be other companies, other situations where they will play another kind of music, or they will emphasize another emotion that they find more important. That can be smell, or that can be the carpet, or that can be the plants, or whatever. So it will vary individually from which company it is and where they are in the evolution, by the way. But I'm certain that any company who wants to be successful has to provide the workers, the employees, the individual with the optimal environment to get the best out of them, for them to give the best back to the company. I think the future of office design is gonna follow the future of this planet in general. If you look at the office that we had 100 years ago and what we got today, it has improved immensely. There's a fair temperature, there's light, there's running water, so everything gets better. And of course that also happens in office environment. We treat each other more and more decent, we treat each other with more and more respect, despite all the conflicts that are still in this world. So I am absolutely certain that also office space and office design will talk to the individual. It will talk up to you in a respectful way, because I know, as the owner of a company or whatever, if I treat you well, you treat me well. And that's how we're going to keep our competitive edge, and that's how we're going to have a great life, by the way. So office spaces and office environment will constantly be improved, of course very differently in this world. If you look at American offices, Chinese offices, Russian offices, Scandinavian, Dutch, they're very different, but they're all moving in one direction, and that is to improve the working environment for the individual who's working there. You should feel welcome. That's why I go to this office at 7:30 every morning when I'm in the country. I light the candlelights, I light the fireplace, I make the coffee, and I put the music on. And then I leave again. So the guy that gets here, or the lady that gets here first, when they open the door, it's not a cold building they're walking into. There's music, Bach, there's candlelight, there's smell of coffee. So they feel welcome, they feel important, that the company cares about them. I think that's important, that you get a good start. I think that's very important, by the way. Instead of you walk in the door and somebody starts telling you, you know, why didn't you send me that email yesterday or whatever. You feel welcome, you feel safe. I think it's important that you have space, that is cozy, that is warm, that is welcoming, because we are some kind of animals and we like to be together and have the fire and see the water. We're so fortunate that we can see the water from where our studio is here in Denmark. And just to be able to see that water, that stands for creativity, as far as I'm concerned. That is important. So it's very important that there's a good atmosphere, there's a cozy atmosphere, because then I think we'll all do better. I mean, of course, the storage system for museums and libraries, that is normally the state or foundation, and of course they have to get as much out of their money as they can, and it has to be a pragmatic evaluation. How much money are we going to spend on this? How much of this? How much of this? And of course, they should spend most of their money on the content, on the books, and on the art. But they also have to store it, right? It has to be functional. So we want to have a new exhibition, or we want to put the books back in the shelf. So that is to some extent rational. But for people to work there and people to live there to work there and have 8 hours a day there, it has to be a good functional, but also a welcoming, nice environment. And it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, if you're on the production site at Volkswagen or you're in the Royal Library of Copenhagen. It's still a human being working there, and it has to work for them from a functional point of view, but also from an aesthetic point of view, so they do their best. I think the style or the design of this house of Jacob Jensen is to boil down to the essence, what is this, and make it appealing. I think that's basically it. And if you want to make a tomato soup, you don't want it to taste of too many things, right? Of, you know, oregano and basil and thyme and blah, blah, blah. You basically want it to taste of tomato if it's a tomato soup you want to make, right? So I think what we have been relatively good at, maybe some would say, at Jacob Jensen, is to boil it down and say, okay, this is the essence of a turntable. This is the essence of a cable reel. This is the essence of a storage system or whatever, and make it appealing. Make it simple, but not too simple. As Einstein said, things should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So make it simple so the viewer, the spectator, would see, okay, this is actually the essence, instead of curves and colors and all that. We use actually quite a lot of colors when it makes sense, but we don't use colors or curves or what I would call noise just to use it, right? I mean, when you pass, with all respect, a mobile home, you know, the auto camper, and you see this big white box, right? And you see this weird, and it's like, why? Because somebody designed it, and they're like, oh, this looks boring. Well, let's make it some lines instead of thinking, what's the essence of this? I mean, so that's what we try to do. We try to find the essence and still make it appealing so the spectator can understand it immediately. Okay, this is about this is about that. I think that's a lot of our Jakob Jensen philosophy. I mean, you're never better than your last fight, right? So no matter who you are in this world, I mean, if Stevie Wonder makes a bad piece of music, it's a bad piece of music no matter if it's Stevie Wonder or not. I doubt that he will ever make a bad piece of music or whatever. You can't live from your name. You build your name and your reputation because you make good stuff or stuff that people like, right? But you can never survive on your name. You can survive on your performance, right? And do your best every time. That's the only way there is, I guess, for all of us, except maybe for the royal families.